This is the Henry's Child Podcast. Am I crazy? Or am I just raving?
Jake Morton, thanks for coming in and hanging out today.
Thanks for inviting me.
You ready to talk some music?
Hell yeah, let's talk.
Do you play some music?
I play a little music.
A little bit?
Yeah.
How many instruments do you play?
I think the number I've always batted around is 9.
9. And is that with a degree of confidence that makes them...
Not at all. No.
It's just like you lay your hands on it and it becomes notes, right?
It's I was thinking about that recently, that for the most part I pick up an instrument out of pure utility. Like, I want to make a noise. There's a sound that I want to hear. I don't know even the guitar very well, or the drums. I mean, I certainly have had to practice rudiments when I was a kid, but it was only because I was told to. I usually just want to make a sound. And so if that means picking up a saxophone and learning how to play that one riff, that's what I will do. There
was one time that you were playing with us not in Henry's Child, but in a band called Rain's Edge that I came from. I remember at the time we were doing things like opening for Love Load. Remember Love Load?
Mm-hmm. Hell yeah.
And
Devil's Purse.
Dude. Yeah, that was some pretty serious stuff.
Yeah. And
I really liked Love Load. We tried to get Barry Barger to do a cover, and the only one that he would do was James Brown. Remember that? Like, I Feel Good?
I Feel Good.
He made you play the...
Trumpet.
That's what it was.
I did.
Trumpet.
I did. I think I played it poorly.
It's like, I remember actually figuring out those 5 notes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Because the other part was just da-na-na-na-na-na.
That part I could do.
It was probably like me and a fretless bass early on. You're like, well, okay, if you just play with enough confidence, right? In Rain's Edge, we didn't tune down, though.
We did not.
No, it was a 440s, just a straight E tuning.
Yep.
So we could just figure out just about anything.
Pretty much, yeah.
That was before Nirvana broke, or else we'd be figuring out Teen Spirit on the trumpet. Wow, how many years have I known you? Like, I probably met you when you were probably about 14, huh?
Did you know Doug Neves?
Oh, heck yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I had known Eben and Doug Neves since I was 5 or 6, I think.
Right, because of your dad.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I don't know. I think you and I and Richard Miller were introduced probably pretty early on. I think maybe closer to 10 than anything else.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So, yeah.
That's a long time.
Yeah. So 30 years.
So, yeah, probably.
Yeah.
You grew up with music, though.
I did.
Like, you had a house full of
musicians. Yes.
Yeah, full of musicians.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was like the Frank Zappa of No Tie.
My sister Sarah was a very talented bass player. She was a singer.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, she did it all. I think she played the flute for a while, but it was kind of like the clubhouse kind of thing. My dad definitely... I think I would see his excitement when he would see something that he just loved, that just blew his mind. And I wanted to create that. That was the biggest thing for me, is like I would see him just flip out over something. And that was enough for me to go, okay, this music thing seems like a pretty good outlet for me to be impressive.
So do you feel like you pursued music then for the love of your father?
Oh, absolutely. And I was I had sort of an intuitive way about it. I mean, I like anything that I'm good at.
That's true.
I mean, you won't catch me playing chess very often, but definitely wanted to be impressive. Definitely got me attention, and that's why.
So when your dad would get excited, like what was his reaction? Was it just kind of like he would break out of the ordinary or whatever?
Sometimes, like there was. I think I don't even know if it was live, but I remember very long ago watching James Brown on TV, and he was playing, and he's flipping out, and like, they'd come out and they'd put the robe on him and try and carry him off the stage, and he'd throw the robe off and he'd run back out and just flip out and scream and dance. And my dad would just, he's one of those people who just like clap his hands together and laugh whenever he saw something that was just amazing to him. It had an impact. I think that his drummer wouldn't stop playing a drum solo, so they had his whole kit on wheels, so they just wheeled him off stage because he wouldn't stop playing. He'd like drag it back out and go fucking nuts. And so I saw that and I was just like, dude, I want to create that. That just looks like so much fun.
Wow. Yeah. That poor guy, he just wants to He just wants to get off. And he's moved by the spirit of,
yeah. The spirit of the Lord.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, cool. Well, that's a pretty good reason to pursue music.
Yeah, for sure.
And, ever since I met you, it's like we kind of like some of the same bands.
Yep, for sure.
Early on. And I know that, Doug Neves would probably, he was a big piece in kind of correlating all this together. I should get him on a podcast.
Totally. I know.
Doug would love to do that. He'd be fun to talk to, man. And of course, Eben, Eben Pagan, right? So we knew Eben Pagan since he was in high school. And it's because he actually worked with your dad. He was a coppersmith, right?
That's right.
He was so Eben was kind of an apprentice to your dad.
Yeah. Both of those guys really were into like the hair band scene, which I think I just barely missed, right? Because it was kind of on its way out. I mean,
it was on its way out by then. Yeah, totally.
Right. I at some point in time, Alice in Chains and Pearl Jam showed up, and like those guys were just so silly at that point. They couldn't keep it together.
Well, it just slayed anything that was hair metal.
But, I have a lot of layover stuff. My father was very religious. We had a very religious family. And I loved heavy metal. And we all love Satan, don't we? I mean, I don't worship him. I just do everything he tells me to do.
Right, of course.
He really wanted to kind of direct my taste in music. So he did push me to like expand. But had my dad not like really almost made it sort of a punishable offense if I didn't listen to different types of music, I might only have listened to like King Zach, whatever.
Right. No, that's true. Yeah. It's like on like it would be like a White Cross cassette and then like an Extreme cassette, right?
Yeah. I dug this band called White Heart. Did you?
White Heart. That's what I was thinking of. Yeah. That's what I said. White Cross.
Yeah. White Heart. Yeah. And it's just their album Freedom. I remember that. And I went to like the Jesus Northwest festivals and would just like listen to people just freak their shit out.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah.
That was crazy. I was always shocked at my parents liked your parents because they were super Christian, right? I was always shocked at the shows you could go to that I couldn't go to. For the very brief period of time that I was living at home, because I moved out, and what do I move in with? I move in with Doug Neves and Barry Barger, these two like sort of uber Christian people, and then we live next to a gay couple and two chicks from France.
I missed out.
In Eugene.
I don't think I got to see enough shows when I was younger, but maybe that was good. I wasn't interested. I'm not interested in a lot of things I probably should be. I didn't like to see live shows. I'd be like, yeah, cool. I should be up there though. I got real bored with shit that I have no idea why, but I don't have the patience for a lot of things.
Do you find that as you get older, you have less patience for the things that you don't have patience for?
Well, I definitely got some curmudgeon in me, but I'm more patient now as an old man than I.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
You probably, at least for me, I find that I appreciate things a lot more.
Sure.
And one of the things that I never appreciated much growing up was my mom making dinner every night.
Yeah.
And I couldn't understand why we would have the same thing, twice a week or whatever. Now that I make dinner for my own kids, oh man, just the fact that they actually eat something that I create from nothing, right? I may have to boil some water and all that stuff, but the outcome is they're fed. So I'm with you.
Yeah.
I'm with you. So King's X was one of the bands we were really into.
Yep, for sure. I think that I was probably listening to like Gretchen Goes to Nebraska and what was the first one? Out of the Silent Planet. Very early on, I definitely gravitated towards stuff that was more complicated, that was just hard to play.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, when I listened to Theta State, which is probably you at your pinnacle of writing in your youth, because Big Hippie, you were kind of like restrained with you were kind of only as good as the folks that you had in the band. But Big Hippie also served another purpose. We'll get there in a minute. But Big Hippie served another purpose where that was actually a band that played out quite a bit.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's one of those weird things where you trade off.
Sure.
Right. For some of it. And I was really surprised at listening to that Theta State stuff now.
Yeah.
Even when I looked back and like the original ones I have were from 2009.
Yeah.
And I asked Jarrett. Jarrett called me for some other reason about it. Something like I had someone up on Craigslist and saw, hey, did it sell? And I'm like, no. When do you think that Theta State was recorded? Did you involve it? Were you involved?
He was totally involved.
He's like, I think I did like every single Theta State song.
Probably, yeah. I guarantee he did. He worked at Studio Atlantis in L.A. he would literally, hey, Madonna didn't show today, so the studio's empty. And so we would, I'd kick, Kalani in the head and go, wake up, fuck, let's go. And we'd grab every piece of equipment that we had and we'd run over there as fast as we could. Most of those songs were written, at least like arranged, with just him playing drums and me playing scratch tracks and just shouting into his ear.
Wow.
I think probably the 5 or 6 songs that actually made it to like mastering, they absolutely were just written and recorded with Kalani just playing and jamming.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Yeah, Studio Atlantis, we did the ass end of the First Sleep record there.
Oh, shit.
Which was the exact same thing. Except for us, because we lived in Oregon, we had to wait until it was baseball season down there. And I think the only time we could come in were were 4 days in a row between Christmas and New Year's. Like that like 14 days. There was like 4 that we could go in and do it. Yeah. But let's back up for a second. So because what you're referring to is awesome, and I want to hear stories about that, because I love those Theta State songs. They're very cool, and they're very catchy. But before that, you had a band called Big Hippie.
Sure.
And Big Hippie was kind of your first band. Yeah. Right?
It was the first band I think that I kind of ran.
We don't count Worship. and I'm gonna have to give Doug Neves the heads up that we don't actually count Worship.
It's not going in the official records. It's not part of canon.
It's not on allmusic.com, so it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
But so Big Hippie. So tell me about Big Hippie.
My huge problem was I lived out in the middle of nowhere, and I think that I started on drums and piano. And I think that's a great basis for any songwriter, because you get that rhythm. And then, I think if you ever want to learn musical theory, you should just sit there and stare at a piano for hours on end. I mean, I really think that that's just a great way to learn. I think for the most part, I wished that I could play every instrument. I think that I've always sort of been that way, and very selfishly so. And one of the things that was kind of essential was that I met Kalani, and that they... I think really I can attribute to Harley and Farmer Greif that they said, like, look, he's a great drummer and you should listen to him play, and you need to stop being a piece of shit. And
was it because there was competition of you?
Absolutely. And this is what a piece of shit I was back then. I absolutely was like, fuck that guy. No way. He's probably terrible. I just did not care. And so I was like, like the most arrogant little, 15-year-old kid I think you could meet. But then I heard him play, and I was like, oh, fuck, he's really good, And he lived down the street from me, and there were like, rumors that he could hear me practice my drums as he walked home from the bus stop, So like we definitely grew up on the same street, about 5 years apart. So he was like this young kid.
Yeah, that's not out of the realm of possibility either.
Yeah.
So just to put it in perspective for people that know, Jake did live in the middle of nowhere. So there was like, so if you're going from Eugene to the coast and you go and you cut it straight over, you hit Florence, right? And so
you'd hit Florence if you hit the
Florence
coast. Yeah.
If you just sort of kept going. Mm-hmm. And there's Veneta, which is you went to Veneta High School, right?
Yeah, Elmyra, yeah.
And Elmyra, that's what it was. And then past that is No Tie, which is
Noti,
where the guy didn't tie the horse to the.
That's the story. Who the fuck knows if that's real?
Is it real, like a Frank Zappa story or something?
Yeah, right.
Okay, so anyway, so No Tie is further than Elmyra.
Yep.
Right. Mm-hmm. And so how weird is that Kalani, isn't Kalani like a doctor now or something?
He is. Yeah. He's got a doctorate,
or has a doctorate degree
in I think behavioral psychology, and he does.
You fucked him up good.
Oh
dude.
Man, yeah.
Obviously.
He does like at-risk children, I think, like children of abuse, and so he's just some really cool stuff. It's so complex that every time he describes it to me, my eyes kind of gloss over, and I go, okay, cool, man, sounds great. But yeah, so we wanted a band so bad, and I think I was problematic in the way that I wanted to sing. I wanted to kind of I wanted to guide the song. I wanted to guide that melody, but I did want to be behind the drum set because I wasn't really that good at any other instrument. And
was it kind of the one you had the most confidence on? Is that?
I think I didn't want to play piano.
Got it.
And so when it came time to learn guitar, it was utilitarian. It was like I just need to know how this thing works.
So you learned guitar of necessity then, huh?
Yeah, pretty much.
Huh.
Yeah.
So run down the line. So Kalani on drums.
Kalani McAnew on drums, Farmer Greif on keyboards.
Okay.
And then Harley, Chuck, Gray on bass.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And then you on guitar and vocals.
And me on guitar and vocals, yeah. We all sang. King's X was like the Beatles of prog rock. I just loved harmonies. We all loved Alice in Chains. We really did gravitate towards bands that had more singing, more sort of vocal.
Yeah, I can see that.
And so it was very melodic. So we all wanted to sing, or at least I forced them to. But I really do agree. I mean, like my philosophy about it is that the way I write a song is so abstract and it's so in my head, and I usually sit down at the drums and just sort of sing something to myself. And so there's a lot of like movement. Those three guys really watered it down enough to where it was, like palatable.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
I mean, the stuff that I write on my own is so abstract. It's most of it's unlistenable.
Do you think that you still start with drums and a melody line in your head?
I'll at least start with a rhythm for sure. Yeah. And oftentimes I'll write a song, sitting playing a drum beat, I'll write a song in my head and I'll sing along with it, and then I'll take drums out and it won't exist ever with drums ever. But I'll definitely come up with that idea from the drum throne. I think like 90% of my music I write just singing to myself.
It's also probably too a place for you to be able to let go of like everything else in your life, all the other kind of BS that sort of comes along.
Yeah.
I start to feel that way when I play bass.
Yeah.
That's why I probably acted stoned when we were practicing at your house with the like one earbud in and playing along with the record. We'll get to that in a sec. But okay, so Big Hippie's happening.
Yeah.
And I remember several shows at the Wow Hall.
Yeah.
And even playing with Henry's Child.
Henry's Child for sure.
At the Wow Hall.
You guys let us open for you a lot. I mean, that really helped us break into the kind of the scene.
You guys had a good show though, yeah, and you guys had a lot of energy on stage.
Yep. We did I think we did the first Eugene Celebration, maybe the first or the second.
Yeah, those were a big deal. Mm-hmm. I mean, to people who miss those, because they don't have the Eugene Celebration anymore.
Yeah.
Not that there's nothing to celebrate in Eugene anymore. It's just what we had heard, and again, this is a rumor and totally hearsay, but Papa Cat secretly sort of like funded the whole thing financially for years, and so that's what allowed them to have all these great bands and block off the streets, and now it's has disintegrated. In fact, here's an interesting tidbit.
Sure.
The show that you filled in on drums with for Henry's Child was the replacement for the Eugene Celebration at that time.
Uh-huh.
So they don't even have that anymore.
Yeah.
But Eugene Celebration, okay, that would have been a good one.
Yeah, it was a big show for us. Yeah. We did the Battle of the Bands a couple times. We tried to get on Elemental Records. I was listening to your podcast with it. That was such a cool thing. We tried out so many times. We got so many very nicely worded, your music is too weird for us letters.
Really? I didn't think your music was that inaccessible.
Recording was always a tough thing for us, I think. When I look back, that's where I have most of my regrets, is because I was so stubborn. And I think that's where I made most of my biggest mistakes. To me, I think when I sit down and listen to some of those, like Global Chillage was like our one main album that we got printed and everything.
Right. So I was going to bring that up. So that was your record.
Yeah.
Right. And where was that recorded?
We recorded that in two places. One was Dogwood Studios, which I think was out in Veneta.
Jeff Olson at Dogwood Studios. Yeah.
And then the other half we roped up Jarrett and we headed out to the Phil Acres, which is on our way out, out Willamette. I think Farmer's family owns some property out there.
Yep.
Giant, apple orchard, where we just took over that giant house and just did a bunch of drugs and played a bunch of music.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. And then when it came to like finishing things up, I think we had like 10 or so songs, 10 or 12 maybe. And, and I did things like re-record bass parts and secretly go in and add tracks, and I think that's just sort of par for the course with me. I was a real terrible person when it came to making music with me. I think that was just the hardest part for them, I think.
Wow. So is that news? Is that news to
No. I mean, no. It was never anything that I was ashamed of. I mean, I'm ashamed of it now, but I certainly felt super justified in just going, not good enough.
I liked Global Chillage.
I do too. I enjoy it.
So Big Hippie's going.
Yeah.
And then there's a decision to move to California.
Yeah, sure.
And so tell me about that. How did that morph into what it was?
It's, interestingly enough, I think one of the things that happened that was pretty intense was around that time there was that Thurston shooting.
Kip Kinkle?
Yeah. Yeah. And I was pretty moved by that. I grabbed Jarrett and we recorded a song where I played all the tracks, and it was that Make Me Blind song. And I sent it to Jace Edwards. Right? Is that it? That's, yeah. And he was at
Jace Edwards at KNRQ.
KNRQ. And he loved it so much. He's like, let's put it on the radio. And so it got some airplay. And I moved so fast. I think that really drove a serious stake in between the band and I, because I just released a song as Big Hippie without them on it.
Oh, and you just did it yourself.
I recorded every track, yeah. And didn't really involve them in it at all, and so it was.
So you didn't. So they just showed up on a Friday, and they're like, "Oh, I hear there's a song I didn't play on that's being
that I've
played
never
on the
heard
radio." Before. Wow, Jake, you do move fast.
So yeah, we were going to college. I was on my 4th year at the U of O, and I felt pretty stagnant, and I think I pretty much kind of looked at the boys and said, like, I know where we're heading. I think I'm ready to go. And that's just so you got to flip your life upside down a couple times to.
Sure. Yeah, I'm with you.
And thank God they followed me down there, because I was just floundering by the time they got there. I had nowhere. I was crashing on people's couches and.
So this is in L.A. So
yeah.
did you graduate from the U of O?
No, I left pretty much. I had changed my major so many times. It was going to take me another year to get out of there, and I was not interested.
Oh my God, I did the same thing. Like, I did mine with community college.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had like 6 different majors. I walk away after 8 years with like no actual degree.
Yeah. Yeah.
But a lot of experience. So 4 years at the U of O, and then you're all like, screw this. I'm going to move to California. Yep. I want to be a rock star.
Yeah.
Is that kind of what was going on?
Pretty much, yeah.
And where'd you land?
We landed right off of Fairfax in Hollywood, and we got this 2-bedroom house where Henry, Farmer's younger brother, came along. He's a good bass player.
Yep.
He came down with us, and 5 of us in that 2-bedroom. I had the living room and the couch, and Henry and Kalani had one room, and Chuck and Farmer had the other.
That was a little bungalow in between some pretty major strips. I remember very, very early on in the Double Year Dating days, right after I was courted by Eben to sort of come onto the company, one of his big sort of things was you could work from anywhere.
Yeah.
And so these in-person meetings were a big deal.
Yeah.
And I remember sleeping on the couch. Now, you had left already for probably close to a year.
Yeah, I moved
least.
to Venice, yeah.
I woke up and I had all these like bites all over me and stuff. And I go, God, when's the last time you cleaned this couch? And Farmer said something to the effect of like, oh, we just found that on the side of the road, a couple blocks away. And I'm like, I think I'll sleep on the floor
that sounds
tonight.
Very accurate. Yeah.
But it was very cool. The other thing that I remember about that particular house was they had refreshed the crayons in the inside of the shower. So when you take a shower, there was kind of all this like natural graffiti that had been put in there. And so like I actually noticed some song lyrics and stuff that were up there. I'm like, oh, that's genius.
Definitely.
That's genius.
I'm so lucky that those boys, we were best friends. We were brothers.
Oh, they loved you, man.
They're my we love each other. And they're such a group of creative human beings, and we're all so different and in our own way, but we're also similar too. We all have that growing up where we did. Kind of makes you a little different.
It's really bonded you, and I mean, look at what Farmer's gone on to do.
Yeah.
Aloe Black and all that. He's the only one of us, all of us, even all the guys in Henry's Child. That have been able to make an entire career off of music.
International, really incredible.
And he's actually the closest to the rock star out of everyone.
It's really interesting. I can kind of dial that back. If you think that last year, right before I left Eugene, it was a band called Fishbone.
Oh yeah,
with Spacey T and Fish on drums.
Yeah.
And they were on tour with Weapon of Choice. Lonnie Marshall, who
you guys love Weapon of Choice.
Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers, I think after his 9th Best Bass Player award was like, I just rip off whatever Lonnie Marshall's doing. Like they were great friends. They had a music like a conservatory in LA together.
Wow!
So they were good friends. And so back in Eugene, we saw Weapon of Choice, and we saw Fishbone, and we basically grabbed like this giant bag of weed and just like slapped it up against the window of the bus, and they just opened up the door, and we went in there and we got high, and we we introduced ourselves. And when we made it down to Los Angeles, somehow we reconnected with Lonnie. We got hooked in with Fishbone. They were kind of trying to get back together, I think, at that time. They had a bunch of there's a really awesome documentary about Fishbone. I don't know if you can find it on Amazon anymore, but I watched it. It's really fascinating. We swapped out. I played drums for Weapon of Choice for like a hot minute. He's his little one nut stand thing, and I got to play with I think his name's Angelo, the lead singer of Fishbone. We got to hang out with those guys a bunch, and it was so cool because they were just they were total rock stars to us.
Yeah, totally.
They're as close as we could get, and so that I think that really helped kind of sculpt what Farmer and Henry and Kalani wanted to do after. Sort of the disintegration of the Big Hippie band, that they wanted to do that.
So Chuck didn't move down with you.
He did move.
He did.
He did. And Henry came too. So our sound was always sort of in flux, and we were doing, what was it? I mean, it had elements of reggae. It had like a
lot of funk.
All that funk music. We loved the Chili Peppers. I always loved the Police, and I think some of that Police influence comes out in Theta State more than anything else. So all of our influences, would kind of create this little amalgamation of who we were, and it got harder and harder and harder to get the parts played. So there were gigs where we had 2 bass players, and there was a lot of stress and strain and a lot of hurt feelings, and
wow,
it was never simple. And one of those things that I'll always remember, which is like, I kind of thought breaking up the band was a huge favor to them. Because I don't know if everyone feels that way.
Because of obligation to the cause or to you, or?
I think that there are times when I've noticed that like I was just so pushy. I don't think I got a lot of honest answers when it came to, hey, what do you feel like doing? And I think that at times they needed to break. Like sometimes you have a job that you hate so much you just hope you get fired. And I don't think anyone could have broke up the band other than me. and that's just sort of like, that's kind of how it works out, right? I mean, what was that? There's a famous quote: "You can't stop us because you didn't create us." And I'm probably butchering it, but but it really did kind of come down to like there was some need to just sort of let them go. And after a particularly big show, actually, we played what was that place right on Sunset? It was like the Coconut something.
Teaser?
The Coconut Teaser, right up on Sunset. We played there, and we actually had a pretty good crowd, and we were like, high on life, and I was like standing outside on the sidewalk, and I was like, I don't think I want to do this anymore.
Wow.
Just like stuck with it.
That's like a Soundgarden, like we're right at the top. We're just going to quit now.
I mean, we never made it very far. I mean, we made that first album. We were writing new tunes, but they were sort of directionless. And we rented to the studio a couple times to try and record old ideas, and they didn't go anywhere either.
Yeah, that's rough. That's rough when you don't remember what the original flavor was for it, or the original sort of vibe that you had coming off of it. Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah. So Big Hippie. So you break up the band, right? And then I know Farmer and Henry went on to do Breakdown Boys
and Kalani,
and Kalani, and that's probably when I was down in LA staying with them, getting flea bites on the couch.
Yeah.
And so where did you go?
I had moved to Venice, and I lived like right off the beach, and I kind of had this little sort of like, renaissance for me. I had a studio apartment, and I would pick up my guitar. I was working for Eben. I'd walk out onto the beach and write tunes all day, and then come back and, do my work for Eben, and just basically kind of really started to change what I would say is that anger, that like sort of gritty anger, mean, that really, we dropped tune to D, and then we would do a drop C.
Wow.
And
that's really angry.
Yeah, it was a lot of like dark tones, and I really did kind of abandon that, electronic, the distortion guitar and that, that really heavy, thick distortion. I like to revisit it because it does feel sort of visceral and like,
sure,
it feels very teenage boy angsty.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did drop a lot of that. And that's funny because, I started playing music as much as I could, and I did a couple gigs with a couple of my friends that I had made out in Venice, and Henry and Kalani had come to see me play, and afterwards they just looked at me like, "What the fuck is wrong with you? Why are you doing this?" And I was like, "I don't know. I don't have anything else to do." And they're like, "Well, you can start a band with us if you want." And I literally just was like, "Oh, thank God, please. Yes, I don't want to do this anymore." And that's kind of how Theta State happened.
Okay.
We just did that then.
So how many years was it between sort of you breaking up Big Hippie down there to the Theta State getting together? And so how long was that? And then sort of part two of that question is, how did you guys start? Did you kind of drive over to their house and kind of like jam, or like did you kind of come up with ideas and send them over to them?
There was after Big Hippie broke up, I was living there. I thought it'd be best to move out. I had a job across town, which is hard to get to anyways. None of us had cars.
Right, a car down in LA is more of a liability than an asset. For sure.
We found out. Yeah, after $700 in parking tickets, I realized
Yikes.
very quickly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I moved to West Hollywood, and that's when the Breakdown Boys were really kind of taking off, and they were playing every once in a while. I got to play drums because Kalani couldn't make it. So that was always fun, and I did get to play with Aloe on guitar a couple times too.
Oh, cool!
We played a big show. I remember Marissa Tomei was in the front row, and I'm just like staring down at her, going, "Oh, I should keep playing the guitar. This is crazy."
Look, that's a famous person.
And so then I think probably a couple years, 2 or 3 years went by, where they were doing, a lot of stuff, and I would try and like stand in as much as I could. What was the second question? How long in between those two projects?
The second question was, how did you guys start writing songs together?
Oh, yeah. I had a couple ideas. The We Came Down song, and then Impotence, which I think really kind of came out of me just, all of a sudden that microphone was gone. And so there were all these songs just sort of like boiling up. I mean, like, just think about like a boiling water with the lid on, it was just escaping wherever it could.
Yeah.
And so I didn't have any place to sort of project those ideas. There's a huge amount of catharsis in singing your songs and what you're going through, at a bunch of blank faces and having them enjoy it.
Right. Right. Exactly. Totally.
And so with that gone, I think that initial reaction was to create probably twice as much music as I had before.
I can see that, sure.
Yeah. And so I did have a lot of ideas, and again, like Henry and Kalani really came in and they said, "Look, let's just take it back." I mean, Henry first things first was like, turn the distortion off. Let's see how we can make this still sound as energetic and aggressive as it can be, but without all that, because it wasn't really
That's
his
funny.
jam.
That was really Henry's suggestion, huh?
Yeah, for sure.
Wow.
There's a couple where, the initial idea was just this big metal tune, and what it turned out to be was something a lot more pretty.
That was my fallback of Gemini Man, which that was a Big Hippie song, though.
Yeah, that was a Big Hippie song.
That wasn't a Theta State song. Yeah. And Henry's a phenomenal bass player in his own right. I mean, he probably missed the first go-around just because he's younger than the youngest member of Big Hippie in the first place.
Harley was my best friend. He always has been. We were a team. And so, I mean, he really, if I was going to be in a band, he wanted to be involved,
Yeah.
So I think Chuck gravitated towards that bass because it was something that he understood. It was something that made sense to him, and he liked being sort of the foundation that the music was put on top of. And he was sort of foundational as far as like the group of friends. He had always been sort of the kind of the rock that we bounced off of. And everyone had their role, and I really think that he enjoyed that. He he liked bringing that sort of solid foundation to the songs. And a lot of those bass parts really kind of evolved into that sort of feel, that he would bring this thick, we doubled up a lot of stuff, but when he would double it up, he would do these things to simplify it, to move it through the song. And I thought that was always better than what I would do, because when I would write a song on the bass, I'm like slapping and like plucking at it
all over the place.
I'm playing like lead bass. And it didn't make a lot of sense, And now, as an old man, I write songs where the bass doesn't come in until the last minute of the song. But
it sounds really good.
But when it does come in, you just like, it's like,
I love
that's the moment. Yeah.
So you feel like playing a Theta State song?
Yeah, sure. Let's do it.
I was going back and listening to it. Impotence.
Yeah.
I feel like it's probably the most diverse.
Uh-huh.
It shows a lot of what you can do.
Yeah, a little bit.
I don't know. I like it. So really quick before I play it, though.
Sure.
Can we go back and maybe find out around what time was this recorded? Like what year was this recorded?
Oh, wow. 2004, 2009-ish. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Within that 5-year time frame.
It's all kind of blends together.
Sounds good. All right. Impotence from Theta State. Wow, Theta State, Impotence. That song sounds pretty intense. How come you called it Impotence?
I think that pretty well encapsulates the feeling of just not being able to perform anymore, or not be able to not have a
outlet,
a result. Yeah, there's no baby, there's no there's no album, there's no recording, there was nothing coming out of sort of a lifetime of music that I was doing my job, I was working, and that, to me, that's just me feeling how impotent I felt to make any kind of change in my life, to do anything like of value, that's something that inspired me. Mm-hmm. It has a lot to do with sort of, there's a bunch of there's things where I mention, like the blood of the lamb, right? It's like all these little pieces of my life where like Christianity was one that I've since been cured of. But like there's a bunch of other stuff in there. There's little tidbits of stuff. I don't necessarily say any one thing, but each line kind of shows an emotion. At least I hope so. I mean, like the thing about I am water behind a dam. It just really kind of was how I was feeling at the time, of just having no outlet for any of that stuff. Mm. And so when I was able to finally do it, it's just a lot of I didn't have a chorus. And so a lot of us writing together was that we would just kind of sing at each other. We would sing harmonies, Henry and Kalani and I. And so we started singing, I want you to know, I want you to know, I want you to know, I want you to know. Like, I want you to know that I write music. I want you to know that I have more ideas. I want you to know that I'm sorry. I want you to, there was an inability to communicate without music. And I wrote that song feeling that frustration and that strain.
That's cool.
Thank you.
So let's fast forward then quite a bit, and we come to Portland. So you moved here, what'd you say, 6 years ago?
Yeah, about 6 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 2012, you end up in Portland.
Yeah.
And you bought a house.
I'd been bouncing around for so many years, and I wanted to build a studio, and I wanted to just kind of just make music and put in roots and have fun. And I really felt at home when I got here, for sure. I mean, it had been a long time since I'd been back in Oregon.
Yeah, and you're talking about Oregon. You never lived in Portland before, did you?
I never lived in Portland. I would visit. It was kind of this. It wasn't a place that I.
And so, are you still building out the studio out there?
Yeah, I mean, the studio is probably about. I mean, as far as like, still not having like a $10,000 board or anything like that.
Of course.
I mean, the studio is complete. It's
wow.
It's finally done. Yeah. So I have like a 48 channel studio. I've got. I've been having fun in it, but. Mostly use it just to write down ideas, just to organize.
Last time I was at your studio we were rehearsing for a Henry's Child show.
Yep.
And it was what I referenced before, and I didn't really realize I was doing it at the time, which is beautiful because it always makes you look like you're smarter than you really are. Jake was filling in on drums for a show that was the replacement of the Eugene Celebration show.
Right.
And Doug Cramer, who quit the band back in, March of last year or something like that, he had planned a vacation around the time that the show was happening. And so we had already taken the show, and we had really asked Jake, we said, Jake, please come and fill in and help us out. And so, at that point, these were almost all older songs.
Yeah.
So we had recordings of them. So I would drive out to Jake's house, and he had... a couple little earbuds that we'd put in. We'd play the recording, and he would play drums, and I'd play bass along with it. And I had that goofy little Behringer set. Yeah. I ended up getting it back from you, and that Emma plays that in her room all the time. Nice. So it is my fantasy of sort of leaving instruments around the house and being all like, maybe they'll catch on. Yep. Emma really likes Gorillaz, so she figured out the bass line to... Windmill, ta ta ta.
Oh yeah, for sure.
She loves that, dude. Oh, it's funky. It's funky. Yeah. It's only like 6 notes, but dude, it blew her mind.
Yeah.
Anyway, we were out at Jake's house, and we were learning these songs, and that's where Jake got a little bit of a taste of Henry's Child. Aside from kind of playing with us in Big Hippie and all this other stuff before, he sort of came into the Henry's Child family, played drums for this show, was great. Doug comes back, and we started writing some music with you as a second guitar player. Yeah. And at that time, I don't think we had made a decision to have a second guitar player.
No.
We're just kind of kicking it around.
Yeah.
And there's a song on the new record called Be Still that is recorded. Mm-hmm. And we still use a part that you came up with.
Oh, cool.
And it's like the in-between on the chorus part, the dun, 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 dun. It's like
nice.
That build-up part.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we kept it.
Very cool.
At times 2 and 3. Right? So it's like, 1 is the breather. Mm-hmm. It happens on 2, happens on 3, and then by 4, it's the big giant crescendo
for sure
of the chorus, which is in D, which is all of our songs are in D. Actually, that's a lie. It's actually C sharp, so it's D flat. Technically, if somebody's out there doing what Emma did to Gorillaz, is figuring out our records. Wouldn't that be the bomb? That'd be the bomb if somebody's like out there actually tabbing, like Gemini Man. They're all like, God, did he play a 7th string on this? Because I can't find this note.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing that I think gets a little addictive is when people are singing your lyrics back and you're like, I don't even know what I sing there.
Oh, hell yeah, man. Yeah. I mean, when we first did the reunion show for Henry's Child in 2014, what blew my mind was there were teenagers in the front row singing along with I Will.
Oh, right.
And they were singing along with Failure.
Right.
Andrew tells the story the best in that he was like, well, first off, they couldn't have been alive on the first time of the recording. Right. But secondly, they were singing parts of verses. So it was really weird. Like they obviously, like an uncle or someone had given them, a CD, or maybe they found it in like a used bin or something. And they just came out to the show, which is a trip.
Geez, we got into this band from Arizona called Fred Green. And I literally pulled the CD out of the trash of a friend of mine. And I said, what is this? And he's like, you know what? You'd probably like that. It's like weed music. And I was like,
weed music?
Sweet, dude, weed music. I don't even know what that means. What is it like, the Grateful Dead or something? That's what weed music was to me.
Right.
It's like something that that played at Woodstock. And really awesome band. If you ever get a moment, just go online and find some of their tunes because it's amazing.
I toured with Farmer and we went through Arizona, and so he not only did he play a bunch of Fred Green, we actually one of the guys came to our show.
Oh yeah, Chris Peeler maybe is a drummer.
Tempe, probably Chris. Yeah,
incredible drummer, phenomenal drummer, and he can sing and rap and play drums, and he's not one isn't suffering over the other. And there, again, 3-part harmonies. There's a power trio, 3-part harmonies, crazy time signatures, insane drum parts. They were just fantastic musicians. And again, I brought the CD home, and I put it on. I said, hey, Dad, you want to check out this weird band? And we played, and we just laughed hysterically. That's how we reacted to it. It was just the craziest music we'd ever heard.
That's awesome.
But still, we all know Fred Green. We all, recite the lyrics and everything like that. And the same thing with Henry's Child. And we all had the Henry's Child CDs. I definitely had it in my car. I mean, with our giant souped-up speaker systems.
Sure.
It doesn't even do that anymore. But yeah, I mean.
Well, it's funny. A lot of stuff does come around full circle because we had talked about having CDs in cars.
Yep.
Well, the other one is we released a cassette.
Nice.
Back probably 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Because they sound better, man.
It's funny. There was this joke that I kept pushing around to the younger folks, and by this time they're probably like in their 30s and stuff. Was be careful with the metadata on it.
That's a nerdy ass joke.
Yeah, it's a nerdy joke.
That's a nerdy joke
I
right
know,
there.
Dude. I'm horrible. But yeah, so on this table, usually when guests come in for podcasts, I have a bunch of stuff that I give them, but then I realize Jake has all of our CDs and all the 7-second circle stuff anyway from coming down to rehearsal. So I'm holding in my hand this cassette single, and the name of the record is going to be One of the Numb.
Okay.
Which comes from a lyrical reference from Clearly Confused.
Oh, cool.
From a song called Lie Before. And so we decided to call this little single Two of the Numb. And it's got a song called The Stars in Your Eyes, which you may have played with us early on.
Yep.
And then a song called I Can't Believe You're Complaining on it. And so if you don't have a cassette player, I have a digital page that you can sign up and get them for your iPod. But there was many folks who bought that single and said, "Oh yeah, I'm going to go out and play it in my car because I have a 1998 Tahoe or something." I was like, "That's dope! I want to totally hear it in your car."
Right on. It's awesome.
It looks good, doesn't it?
I know. I definitely practiced The Stars in Your Eyes for the show, I think, or one show. I don't think I know. I don't think I know the "I Can't Believe You're Complaining." I don't know. I don't.
That was a Mnemonic Machine song that just sort of stuck around. It wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility to do the "Stars in Your Eyes" and "Tell Me True." Those were probably the two ones that you practiced guitar on,
for sure,
and drums on, obviously.
Yeah.
So, Jake, what about the future? Do you think that you want to start a band? You want to kind of like join a band? Because I'm
constantly thinking about what to do next. I think it makes sense. I think that to me, what I'm most inspired by is I've always wanted to do like musical scores for film.
Oh wow!
But I do still write. I mean, I still write almost every day. So there's a lot. Yes, you can't think too hard about where you are in your life. You got to just kind of keep planning and keep going for stuff. Yeah. I know I'm really into this band called Policia, I think is how you say it. They have 2 drummers, and they're really interesting. They kind of mix like electronic and stuff like that together. And so yeah, I mean, I'm still writing, and I'm still just sort of getting all those songs together. It would be fun to just sort of do an anthology, because I think I have a couple 100 songs maybe that I could put together in something.
So you got like Prince vault level stuff.
I mean, it's getting there. I mean, one of the things is just organization.
Well, okay. So this is kind of an ongoing conversation that I've had with a lot of folks, and so I kind of always ask it. I'd love to get your take on it. Mm-hmm. So, what are your take on distribution these days? Are you like a Spotify user? How do you feel about that?
I'm not a Spotify user. I tend to like to make my own playlists. I think that most of my friends my age and older tend to gravitate towards things like iTunes, and then all my younger friends all use Spotify, and their main jam is that they're constantly hearing new music, but it is sort of guided,
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a frustration there. One of the things that I run into a lot is that, I mean, I love listening to something that I've never heard before, but for the most part, I'm usually kind of like looking for a very specific sound. And so there's this catalog of music in my head. I mean, go and re-listen to Pointer Sisters' Breakout. I mean, that's a fucking fantastic album, and I can get
it's
down
funky,
with that.
Huh?
Yeah, and you want to hear the whole thing. You want to hear what they were doing at the time. And I think that there's going to be maybe a little bit of a resurgence of albums, because life isn't easily cut into 4-minute slices. And
right.
I mean, nowadays, our movies, they're funny and they're sad and they're exciting and they're moody and they're, I think that if you keep making albums, I would just put them out there. Someday someone's going to grab it and listen to it. I just found, about a year or two ago, I found RYX, his first album. And that album, and it's not the best album in the world, but man, you want to listen to it associated with its other songs. If you're in that mood to hear that song, you don't want Kanye to come on afterwards.
Sure. No, of course.
And I think that there's a reason to keep making albums. Even though there isn't an immediate payoff, I think that you should put your music together in a theme that matches what you're doing at the time. And a lot, right. I know how you guys write. I know I write, and I pull ideas from all over the place, from decades ago and from right now. But I would much rather listen to something in some sort of format, some beginning and end.
No, I'm with you. In fact, one of the things that we've been sort of, kicking around is this notion of, okay, so if people don't buy albums, right, what does it take to get people to come out to shows?
Sure.
Right? So a lot of times, now that there is just endless amounts of entertainment. You can binge watch things on Netflix. You can play your Xbox. You can play your PlayStation. How do you get people out to shows? An idea is something to try on is creating events around things.
Yeah.
So a lot of times I've noticed that there's some bands here in Portland that are pretty big. Mm-hmm. Every time they play, they get a number of people show up. But they always make it about something. So they may release a single, and that single is on a 7-inch vinyl record, and there'll be like 300 of them, and they'll be all sort of like, marked. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that shows need to be events these days in order to get people out of the house? Because there seems to be, and again, it could just be me. I could be making this up. It's not the truth.
Yeah.
It could be that there just isn't those plethora of people that just go out to live music anymore.
I think there's an opportunity out there to get people informed about what shows are happening, which ones aren't. I think that there's definitely a little bit of a vacuum. I have friends that tell me when my favorite bands are playing because I don't fucking know how else to keep track of it.
Yeah.
You could, I'm going to sign up to your Facebook page. I'm not going to log into Facebook anymore. Like there's a need to be able to be in the know. I've got a couple favorite bands in Portland that I would like to go see every time. Not every venue is the same. And to me, I think I would rather see something that's has a little more production to it.
Mm-hmm.
You can run into, like Bunk Bar, they have they've got a stage they can throw together and you can play there, but I've never heard a good concert there.
That's true. That's true.
I think the main thing you should really think about is putting on a show that's perfect. Back in the day, we really put a lot of energy into having everything sound perfect to go through each moment. You guys really inspired us for sure. Henry's Child was one of those bands when we would see you guys play in a tiny bar or we would see you play at the Wow Hall. You guys always put this certain level of production into everything.
Oh, thanks,
And I
Jake.
think that is definitely missing. You can't live without that. And I think some of the newer artists are starting to understand that you have to, that whole experience of being there, that's what gets people out of the house. I mean, we all want to go and see great music and feel it and be there. That's so much more powerful than just cranking it up in your earbuds.
Sure, of course. No, absolutely.
Look, I know that it's a struggle now. But I don't think the desire is missing. I think people do want to see live shows. They want to see good live shows. And I think it's a risk to go out and see a band you've never heard before. So I think your only challenge is to let people know that I'm gonna nail the show every single time you come in, and it's gonna be worth the $15.
And more importantly, it's not gonna suck.
I didn't ride my bike all the way here, so my hands aren't too cold.
The excuses for sucking. Yeah, that's a beautiful thing. No, I'm with you. And it's funny, Jake. I never thought about it from that perspective, too. I mean, that's kind of like people have a lot more to lose these days by going out and spending a bunch of money and then not necessarily enjoying what they're at. So, yeah, I don't know. It's interesting because at the same token, for a while there, beginning about 5 years ago, you would go from people downloading an album to downloading the single.
Yeah.
And then a couple years ago, they went from downloading the single to getting the ringtone. And then at that 2-year mark of about 2 years from now, so around 2016, Spotify comes along, and for the price of one record album, you just get access to everything under the sun. I think it's kind of like good guitar tone.
Yeah.
There's not going to be one answer that's perfect for everybody. I think it's going to be a combination of a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
So like with 7 Second Circle, I did one funnel because I wanted to be in 100% control of that funnel.
Sure.
And I chose Bandcamp only because it gives the most royalties to all of the artists.
Interesting.
Apple, Google, they straight up, they're 30%. They don't care.
Got it. There's a really cool, old ancient interview with Frank Zappa about, back in the day, record execs were these big fat cats and they had no idea what good music was. They just would try anything. And then, then the A&R person was born, and then all of a sudden they knew what good music was, and so they could predict that. I think we've gone full circle a couple times since then to where I'm sorry, but no algorithm is going to tell me what music's good. No way. I mean, back when Pandora had jumped up a couple $1 million in some sort of machine learning to figure out what kind of music you like, all roads still leaded to Britney Spears. I mean, after you disliked a couple things, you're gonna get "Oh Baby Baby," And I just don't think that you can machine learn taste.
No, I'm with you. And we used to have this joke going around, especially with Pandora, about the pollution of it. Mm-hmm. So if Emma jumped on my Pandora account and all of a sudden added in a bunch of, like some theme song from some anime that she was into that week, or all of a sudden, it's like all of a sudden J-pop starts popping up on my, after Ben Folds 5 or something. Sure. You're like, what just happened? Yeah. It's the danger of the modern world.
Yeah. I mean, my dad and I talk a lot about music, and he was born in the 40s. And our lifetime of experiencing and listening to music, we have an enormous catalog of songs that we enjoy, that we would recommend. We would never run out of that conversation. And, someone is going to figure out a way to create this sort of community where you share music that's in the niche, that's in the right mode, that's in the right thing. Someone's going to come up with that idea and they're going to make $1 billion fucking dollars.
Well, okay, so here's the thing. I think it's already happened. I've been following them for a long time. It's called 8tracks.com.
Okay.
It's user-driven playlists that have to be 8 tracks.
Okay.
And so it ebbs and it sort of flows in between. And so I found, at least for my listening, there's definitely mood stuff. So there's like work stuff. So when I work on IT and I'm working in DNS, it's really easy to mess things up. And so I do like chill and concentrated music and like jazz sometimes. And I found that 8 tracks is awesome for like genres of music. Yeah. So a long time ago, when they very, very first came out, I did a Northwest music one, and it had Jollymon,
nice,
Chum, Henry's Child.
Oh, I'd love to hear it.
Floater.
Yeah.
And I was one of the first things of Northwest music that was up there.
For sure.
I'll find it and send it to you.
Cool.
And then they opened themselves up to first round investing. And so I actually invested, I think they were $13 a share. Cool. But they're privately held. So they're not public. So the reality of, I basically bought like $100 worth of lottery tickets, kind of a thing. But the whole reason I put money behind them is because I believe in that. I believe in the curation based off of the same desires. So that same desire that you have with that same conversation that you have with your dad is the conversation that I think a lot of people like when they come to practice with Henry's Child and we're like put on an actual record. Yeah. I remember Rex is Jake's dad, by the way. I remember Rex having an Average White Band record that he would play, and he's all like, no, this is funk. And he the song ended and he played it again, and he was like kind of air playing the bass parts, and I'm like, okay, like I totally hear it. Yeah. Like back then, I mean, and I'm sort of in between everybody. So I was probably like 15 or 16. If I was going out to your house, I would be driving myself. So I would have been 16, right? Yeah. And I remember that, well, first off, the W is the woman's butt. I'm like, whoa.
It's a really nice ass.
That's an oddly sexy logo that you have. But I remember him playing that song and being, and
cut the cake.
Yeah, it's just, freaking fun. You just, I don't know. It's hard to teach funk. Yeah. But you can. So I don't know. Maybe the next level is curation in that particular way. I'm not sure. That's also why I chose podcasting, because it's kind of the last bastion of free speech that's uncontrolled, where if Apple doesn't like something we say on here and they decide to pull the plug, they pull the plug. It's fine. It's on 100 other distributed channels right now that can't be stopped, and I'm super anal, so it's all on my own server too. Sure. So the reality of them stopping this machine is not possible. Yeah. Theoretically. I mean,
I agree.
I don't think there's anything
I have Stitcher. I've got what, like 4 or 5 maybe different podcasting apps. This is really hard to nail down. I don't think I'll ever stop listening to podcasts. I love it. I love the exchange of ideas and just sort of the open format of it. And I also think that I love it for movies. There's a lot of people that just discuss different films and like different scenes and ideas and moving from place to place. I think that this kind of thing is great for anyone that wants to open up their musical taste buds and try something different that they didn't think they'd like before.
All roads lead to Britney Spears.
All roads lead to Britney Spears.
So I've been told. Jake, thanks so much for coming in, my friend.
It was a pleasure.
It was great talking to you.
Hell yeah.
Did you come back on and do this again?
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
All right, my friend. Take care.